What if one small detail about your body, something you probably wrote on a form years ago and never thought about again, could quietly influence how long you live, how your body ages, and what risks are building beneath the surface right now? For over 2 decades, researchers tracked nearly 90,000 people, and what they uncovered rarely makes it into routine checkups. Your blood type isn't just for transfusions. It's a biological blueprint, one that most men over 45 completely ignore. Today, we're breaking it down in a way you've likely never heard before. Blood type by blood type, O, A, B, and AB. Not just what they are, but what they actually mean for your body, your risks, and your daily decisions. And more importantly, what you can do about it. Because here's the truth, most health advice is built for the average person, and biologically, that person doesn't exist. What works for someone else might be completely wrong for you. But before we get into the specifics, there's one critical factor, something beyond your blood type, that determines whether any of this will actually work for you. I'll reveal it later, and when you hear it, it changes how you see everything. So stay with me, because by the end of this, you won't just know your blood type. You'll know how to use it like a personalized health strategy. Let's start with the oldest and in many ways, the most powerful blood type on the planet, Type O. Type O is often called the original human blueprint. It first appeared tens of thousands of years ago in early hunter-gatherer populations, and even today, it carries a biological advantage that modern science is only beginning to fully understand. At the center of this advantage is your cardiovascular system. People with Type O blood naturally have lower levels of a specific clotting protein, meaning their blood flows more freely through the body. Imagine your blood vessels as a network of pipes. In Type O individuals, those pipes stay clearer, smoother, and less prone to blockage over time. And this isn't theory, it shows up clearly in long-term data. Large-scale studies have found that Type O individuals carry a significantly lower risk of coronary heart disease compared to other blood types. Not slightly lower, structurally lower. This is built into your biology from birth. But that's only half the story, because every strength comes with a trade-off. And for Type O, that trade-off is something most people never see coming. Your digestive system, specifically your stomach, is far more vulnerable than you think. There's a bacterium called Helicobacter pylori, one of the leading causes of ulcers and long-term stomach damage. And here's the problem. It attaches more easily to the stomach lining of Type O individuals than any other blood type. Not because of lifestyle, because of your cellular structure. And the most dangerous part? It works silently, no early warning signs. No obvious symptoms. It can live in your system for years, sometimes decades, gradually damaging the protective lining of your stomach without you realizing it. By the time symptoms appear, the damage is often already significant. And this is where most people get it wrong. They wait for symptoms, they assume that if nothing hurts, nothing is wrong. But with H. pylori, especially in Type O individuals, that assumption can cost you years of unnoticed damage. Because this bacterium doesn't show up dramatically, it settles in quietly, slowly weakening your stomach's protective barrier, making it more vulnerable to inflammation, ulcers, and more serious complications over time. If you're Type O and you've never been tested, this isn't something to ignore. Testing is simple, a breath test or a stool test, and it can give you clarity in a matter of days. For your blood type, this isn't optional awareness, it's basic maintenance. Now let's talk about what you can actually do with this information, because knowing your risk is only useful if you act on it. For Type O, movement isn't just beneficial, it's essential. Your body naturally runs on higher levels of dopamine and adrenaline, meaning it's wired for activity. When that energy has nowhere to go, it doesn't disappear. It turns into restlessness, irritability, poor sleep, and eventually metabolic issues. This is why consistent physical activity is one of the most powerful tools you have. Not extreme workouts, just consistent output. Daily walking, strength training a couple of times per week. Simple, repeatable habits that match how your body is designed to function. And when it comes to your gut, protection needs to be intentional. Certain medications, especially common pain relievers, can irritate your stomach lining. For you, that irritation hits tissue that is already more vulnerable. So awareness matters. So does what you eat. Incorporating fermented foods like kefir or sauerkraut a few times a week can help support your gut environment in a very real way. These are small decisions, but over time, they create a very different outcome. And there's one more thing most Type O individuals underestimate: recovery. Your body is strong, yes, but your digestive system doesn't bounce back as quickly from stress, poor food quality, or infections. That means you need to be just a bit more careful than the average person when it comes to food hygiene, especially while traveling or eating undercooked meals. This isn't about fear, it's about precision. Respect how your body works, and it will reward you long term. Because when you combine consistent movement with active gut protection, you're not just maintaining health, you're amplifying a natural advantage that's already built into your biology. Type O is powerful, but only if you use it correctly. Now, before we move on, I want to ask you something. If you already know your blood type, write it in the comments, just the letter. It might seem simple, but the patterns behind who watches content like this are always fascinating, and it helps shape what I cover next. Now let's shift to a very different biological profile. Type A. This blood type emerged much later, when human societies began moving away from constant movement and into agriculture, shared food systems, and denser populations. And with that shift came a completely different kind of immune system, one designed to handle a higher exposure to infections, especially viral ones. On the surface, that sounds like a clear advantage, and in many ways, it is. Type A individuals tend to mount stronger immune responses, particularly in early life. But here's where things start to change. Because that same system that protects you early on comes with a cost that builds over time. Type A doesn't just respond strongly to threats, it stays more activated by default. And that shows up in two critical systems, your blood and your stress response. First, clotting. Compared to type O, type A blood tends to be stickier. Platelets are more active and clotting factors are elevated. On its own, that's not necessarily a problem, but it becomes one when combined with the second factor, cortisol. Type A individuals typically run higher baseline levels of cortisol, your primary stress hormone. In short bursts, cortisol is useful. It sharpens focus and mobilizes energy. But when it stays elevated day after day, it begins to quietly damage the inner lining of your blood vessels. This lining, called the endothelium, is meant to be smooth and flexible. Under chronic stress, it becomes inflamed and less elastic, more like worn rubber than a clean surface. Now combine that with stickier platelets, and you get a perfect environment for buildup inside the arteries. This is why large cardiovascular studies consistently show that type A individuals carry a higher risk of heart-related events compared to type O. But here's the key point. This risk is highly modifiable, more than most people realize. Because both drivers, cortisol and vascular inflammation, are directly influenced by your daily habits, and yet most people treat stress management like a soft, optional wellness habit. For type A, it's not optional. It's direct cardiovascular intervention. Ignoring it doesn't just affect how you feel, it changes what's happening inside your arteries every single day. And this is where awareness turns into leverage. Because if you're type A, your daily routine isn't just about productivity or comfort. It's actively shaping your long-term cardiovascular outcome. I once saw a case that made this painfully clear. A man in his mid-50s, healthy weight, active lifestyle, no smoking history, looked like the definition of low risk on paper. But he had just come off an intense stretch at work, weeks of constant pressure, poor sleep, no real recovery. His stress levels had been elevated for so long that his body adapted to it as a new baseline. And then, one morning, without warning, his system reached its limit. That's the part people miss. It's not always about decades of neglect. Sometimes it's about sustained overload in a system that's already predisposed to it. For type A, unmanaged stress isn't just uncomfortable, it's cumulative damage. So what do you do with that? You get specific. First, monitor your blood pressure more frequently than most people. Not once a year, every 6 months at minimum. Because in type A individuals, pressure builds quietly, often without obvious symptoms. Catching it early changes everything. Second, build a daily reset for your nervous system. This doesn't need to be complicated. 10 minutes in the morning, no phone, slow breathing, 4 seconds in, 6 seconds out. Done consistently, this directly lowers cortisol over time. And consistency is what matters here. 5 minutes every day is far more effective than an hour once a week, because your biology responds to rhythm, not intensity. And finally, there's one marker most people never check. But for type A, it matters more than you think. That marker is homocysteine. It's an amino acid in your blood, and when levels run high, it directly damages the inner lining of your arteries, the same vulnerable surface already affected by elevated cortisol. For type A individuals, this becomes a compounding problem. More stress, more vascular irritation, and a higher likelihood that platelets will stick where they shouldn't. The concerning part is that homocysteine isn't always included in standard blood work. You have to ask for it. But once you know your levels, the solution is surprisingly straightforward. Nutrients like folate, vitamin B12, and B6 help regulate it effectively. Dark leafy greens, eggs, legumes, simple, accessible foods that directly target a very specific weakness in your biology. This isn't complicated medicine. It's precise alignment with how your body works. So if you're type A, think of your strategy like this. Manage stress daily, monitor your cardiovascular markers proactively, and support your system with the nutrients it actually uses. Do that consistently, and the risk profile changes dramatically. Now let's move to a completely different kind of system, type B. If type A is structured and reactive, type B is flexible. This blood type developed in populations that moved constantly across regions, climates, and food sources. And as a result, it evolved one of the most adaptable metabolic systems of any blood type. Type B individuals can typically handle a wide variety of foods, animal proteins, dairy, grains, plant-based diets, often without the same inflammatory response seen in other groups. This flexibility is a real advantage in today's world, but like every advantage, it comes with a trade-off. And in this case, that trade-off shows up in the immune system. That same flexibility that allows type B individuals to adapt so easily can, under the wrong conditions, turn against them. Instead of responding precisely, the immune system can begin to overreact, losing its accuracy and, in some cases, targeting the body's own tissues. This is why type B is more frequently associated with autoimmune patterns, conditions where the immune system isn't weak, but misdirected. And here's what makes this tricky. The early signs are subtle. Fatigue that feels a little deeper than usual, joint stiffness that comes and goes, mild digestive changes that are easy to dismiss. Most people chalk it up to aging, but for type B, these signals can be early indicators that the immune system is becoming dysregulated. The modern food environment plays a major role here. Highly processed foods, refined sugars, industrial oils, these aren't just low-quality calories. For type B, they act as constant inflammatory triggers, gradually pushing the immune system out of balance. And while you can technically tolerate a wide range of foods, that doesn't mean all foods treat your system equally. Certain inputs, especially heavily processed grains and corn-based products, tend to create more disruption over time. So the goal isn't restriction, it's calibration. Understanding which foods your body handles cleanly and which ones quietly create friction. This is where type B individuals have a unique opportunity, because your system responds well to variety, when that variety is intentional. Rotating your food sources, mixing proteins, incorporating different plant foods, this isn't just acceptable for you. It's optimal. It keeps your system responsive without overstimulation. And when paired with the right kind of movement, steady, moderate exercise like walking, swimming, or cycling, you create an environment where your immune system stays balanced instead of reactive. That same flexibility that allows type B individuals to adapt so easily can, under the wrong conditions, turn against them. Instead of responding precisely, the immune system can begin to overreact, losing its accuracy and, in some cases, targeting the body's own tissues. This is why type B is more frequently associated with autoimmune patterns. Conditions where the immune system isn't weak, but misdirected. And here's what makes this tricky. The early signs are subtle. Fatigue that feels a little deeper than usual, joint stiffness that comes and goes, mild digestive changes that are easy to dismiss. Most people chalk it up to aging. But for type B, these signals can be early indicators that the immune system is becoming dysregulated. The modern food environment plays a major role here. Highly processed foods, refined sugars, industrial oils, these aren't just low-quality calories. For type B, they act as constant inflammatory triggers, gradually pushing the immune system out of balance. And while you can technically tolerate a wide range of foods, that doesn't mean all foods treat your system equally. Certain inputs, especially heavily processed grains and corn-based products, tend to create more disruption over time. So the goal isn't restriction, it's calibration. Understanding which foods your body handles cleanly and which ones quietly create friction. This is where type B individuals have a unique opportunity, because your system responds well to variety, when that variety is intentional. Rotating your food sources, mixing proteins, incorporating different plant foods, This isn't just acceptable for you, it's optimal. It keeps your system responsive without overstimulation. And when paired with the right kind of movement, steady, moderate exercise like walking, swimming, or cycling, you create an environment where your immune system stays balanced instead of reactive. For type AB, that daily layer comes down to a few non-negotiables. First, omega-3 fatty acids, especially DHA. This isn't just another supplement trend. DHA becomes part of your brain cell membranes, helping them stay fluid and communicate efficiently. When levels are low, those same cells become less responsive and inflammatory signals gain ground. 2 servings of fatty fish per week can make a measurable difference over time. Second, sleep. Not optional, not flexible. Foundational. During deep sleep, your brain activates a cleaning system that clears out metabolic waste, including proteins linked to cognitive decline. Cut sleep short, and that cleanup process remains incomplete. Night after night, that residue builds. For type AB, consistently getting 7 to 8 hours isn't just about feeling rested. It's long-term brain protection. And third, cognitive challenge. Your brain needs stimulus to stay resilient. Learning something new, solving complex problems, pushing beyond passive consumption, this builds what's called cognitive reserve. It's your brain's ability to adapt and compensate over time. Now, before we close, there's one final piece most people overlook: the Rh factor. That plus or minus after your blood type. It subtly changes how your immune system responds, especially when it comes to inflammation. And in specific situations, like pregnancy, it becomes critically important. So know your full blood type, not just the letter. But here's the truth that ties everything together. None of this is destiny. Blood type sets the stage, but your habits decide the outcome. The difference between risk and reality is what you do consistently. Same genes, completely different futures. So now I'll ask you, what's your blood type, and does this match your experience?